When you hear the word betrayal, you probably picture enemies, people who openly oppose you, rivals who want to see you fail. But the hardest truth is this: betrayal often comes not from your enemies, but from the people who smile at you, call themselves your friends, and sit at your table. These are not enemies in the obvious sense. These are frenemies, people who act like they care, but secretly sabotage you. They may cheer for you in public, but they celebrate your failures in private. They may compliment you to your face, but behind your back they plant doubts, drain your energy, and quietly work to keep you small. Think about it. Have you ever shared a dream with someone, only for them to immediately dismiss it as too ambitious? Have you ever noticed a person who always seems to be around when you're struggling, but is mysteriously absent when you succeed? Or maybe you've had someone who laughs off your accomplishments, disguising their envy as jokes. If so, you've already encountered a frenemy, and the danger is real. Frenemies are not harmless. Their influence seeps into your confidence, your energy, your peace of mind. They keep you second-guessing yourself. They keep you small. And sometimes, without even realizing it, you start living your life to avoid their criticism instead of pursuing your potential. That's why awareness is so important. Because once you see them for what they are, you break the spell. Once you recognize their patterns, they lose their hold on you. And that is exactly what this video is about. Today, we're going to reveal 5 clear signs of frenemies, the subtle behaviors that expose them, and why cutting ties is not just optional, but essential if you want to protect your peace of mind and live fully. Now let's pause here for a moment, because I know what you might be thinking. But isn't cutting ties harsh? Shouldn't we forgive, endure, or try harder? The Stoics would remind us forgiveness and endurance are virtues, yes. But virtue does not mean tolerating poison. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." In other words, your peace of mind matters more than keeping false friends around. Tolerating a frenemy isn't an act of kindness. It's an act of self-sabotage. Let's bring this down to real life. Imagine 2 scenarios. In the first, you surround yourself with genuine friends, people who cheer for you, even when you surpass them. They want to see you grow. They celebrate your wins. They stand by you in your losses. With them, you feel stronger, braver, freer. In the second, you're surrounded by frenemies. They smile, but their smiles are shallow. They listen, but only to find weaknesses. They clap, but only loud enough to cover their envy. With them, you feel drained, hesitant, smaller than you are. Which life do you want? And more importantly, which life are you choosing right now? Because here's the truth. Peace of mind isn't found in numbers. It's not about how many people sit at your table. It's about who they really are. One true friend is worth more than 100 frenemies. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca wrote, "One who seeks friendship for utility will never have them. The one who seeks virtue in a friend will find both." Frenemies are utility-based. They stay because of gossip, drama, or advantage. True friends stay because of character. And the difference between the two will shape your life more than you realize. So as we begin this journey, I want you to ask yourself a question. Who in my life truly adds to my peace? And who quietly steals it? Because if you don't ask that question, you may spend years carrying the weight of false friends who never wanted to see you free in the first place. And that's why identifying frenemies is not about anger or revenge. It's about clarity. It's about reclaiming your energy, your confidence, and your life from those who never had your best interest at heart. By the end of this video, you'll know the 5 signs that reveal a frenemy. You'll recognize their patterns, you'll see through the mask, and most importantly, you'll understand why walking away is not cruelty but wisdom. Because in a world full of smiling traitors, your greatest protection is awareness, your greatest weapon is virtue, and your greatest freedom is the ability to choose who truly deserves a place in your life. So let's begin. Here are the 5 clear signs of frenemies, and why cutting ties is essential for your peace of mind. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against the slander. Respond instead by living so that no one believes it." What he meant was this: people may say things, but their words don't define you. Your actions do. Frenemies thrive by planting confusion in your mind, but the Stoic shield is clarity, knowing who you are, holding fast to your values, and not letting double-tongued words distort your truth. So what's the Stoic solution to two-faced behavior? First, recognize duplicity. Don't brush it off. Don't excuse it as just their sense of humor. If someone praises you in private, but undermines you in public, that is not friendship. It's duplicity. Second, set boundaries. You don't have to confront every remark, but you can decide how much access that person has to your life. If someone constantly slips poison into their compliments, stop giving them the opportunity. Third, limit what you share. Frenemies use your vulnerabilities as ammunition. If you keep feeding them your fears, your dreams, your insecurities, don't be surprised when they weaponize them later. Share selectively, or not at all. Fourth, if necessary, cut ties. Not all relationships can or should be saved. If the duplicity is constant, if the digs never stop, if you always leave feeling smaller than when you arrived, it may be time to walk away completely. Let me share a personal story. Years ago, I had someone in my circle who I thought was a close friend. In private, he was supportive, encouraging me, complimenting my ideas, telling me he believed in me. But in public, it was a different story. Suddenly, he'd mock those same ideas in front of others, turning my passion into the punchline of a joke. At first, I laughed along. Then I excused it as his way of having fun. But over time, I noticed something. My confidence started shrinking. I became hesitant to share my ideas around him, afraid of how he'd twist them in front of others. That was the wake-up call. I realized that true friends don't make you feel small in order to feel big. And once I set boundaries, once I stopped sharing my dreams with him, the digs lost their power. Eventually, I walked away from the friendship altogether. Painful, yes, but freeing. So let me ask you, who in your life wears two faces? Who praises you when no one else is watching, but undercuts you when the room is full? Do they really deserve the title of friend? Here's the bottom line. Friendship is consistent. A true friend is the same in private as they are in public. They don't need to perform loyalty in secret and betrayal in the spotlight. If someone shows you two faces, believe the one that hurts, because that is the truth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In the same way, your confidence becomes dyed by the voices you allow close. If you let two-faced voices color your spirit, don't be surprised when doubt and confusion follow. But if you surround yourself with people whose words are consistent, kind in private, kind in public, your confidence will grow, your spirit will feel lighter, and your life will be built on truth, not duplicity. So the next time someone offers you a compliment laced with poison, or a private cheer followed by a public dig, pause. Recognize the duplicity. Protect your confidence. And remember, you don't need two-faced support. You need allies whose loyalty doesn't shift with the audience. That's sign number 1. two-faced behavior. The mask of support that hides the hand of sabotage. Recognize it, set boundaries, and if needed, cut ties, for the sake of your confidence and your peace of mind. Sign 2. Competitive undermining. The second sign of a frenemy is one that can be harder to spot at first, because it hides behind politeness, even care. It's called competitive undermining. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about healthy competition. Healthy rivalry pushes both people to grow, like two athletes on the same track, inspiring each other to run faster. That kind of competition sharpens your skills, builds mutual respect, and often strengthens friendship. But frenemies don't see your success as motivation. They see it as a threat. To them, your win is their loss. Every step forward you take feels to them like a step backward in their own life. And instead of cheering for you, they begin quietly working against you. How does this show up? Often through subtle sabotage disguised as concern. Imagine this. You tell your friend about a new project you're excited about. Maybe you want to start a business, launch a channel, write a book. Instead of encouragement, they tilt their head and say, "Are you sure you're ready for that? I mean, I don't want you to get disappointed." Or maybe you share a career opportunity you've been waiting for, and they respond, "That sounds great, but don't you think it's a little out of your league?" They dress their doubt as wisdom. They cloak their jealousy as care. But the effect is always the same. You walk away questioning yourself. Another form of competitive undermining happens in shared projects. Picture working on something together, a team assignment at work, a community event, even a creative collaboration. You put in your best effort, but instead of celebrating your contribution, they minimize it. They highlight their role, quietly dismiss yours, or worse, take credit for what you've done. When others praise you, they rush to balance it out with, "Well, yeah, but remember, I was the one who made that part happen." They can't stand for your light to shine without trying to dim it. The Stoics would see this behavior for what it is: insecurity disguised as friendship. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, "Don't be jealous, don't be envious. Another's progress does not block your own." Yet frenemies live in the opposite belief, that life is a zero-sum game. If you rise, they must fall. And because they cannot celebrate your growth, they try to slow you down. So how do you deal with this? The Stoic solution offers several steps. First, trust your instincts. If you walk away from conversations with someone consistently feeling smaller, weaker, or less certain than before, you need to listen to that inner warning. Your gut is often wiser than your excuses. Don't dismiss the signal. Second, stop sharing your dreams with them. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. If someone repeatedly uses your goals as opportunities to inject doubt, cut off their supply. Share your dreams with people who water them, not with those who poison them. Third, pursue your goals anyway. Don't let their doubt become your chain. The Stoics taught us that the only thing in our control is our will, our choices, our actions. If you know your path is worth walking, then walk it. Their discomfort is theirs to carry, not yours to solve. Fourth, reclaim your confidence by refusing to shrink. This may be the hardest step, because frenemies often train you to dim your light so they can feel comfortable. They may make you feel guilty for shining too brightly, as if your success is arrogance. But remember, your growth does not insult anyone. Their jealousy is not your responsibility. Let me give you an example from everyday life. A woman I once coached shared a story about her so-called best friend. She had finally decided to go back to school after years of doubting herself. When she told her friend, the response was, "I mean, that's brave. But aren't you a little old for that now? College kids are in their 20s. You'll feel out of place." The woman almost gave up on the idea. But deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't advice. It was insecurity, disguised as concern. And when she pushed through, enrolled and earned her degree, she said something remarkable. The best part wasn't the diploma. The best part was realizing I never needed her permission to begin. That's the power of refusing to shrink. Now pause and ask yourself, who in your life does this? Who listens to your dreams with a smile, then plants seeds of doubt? Who minimizes your success or only feels at ease when you're playing small? And more importantly, why do you still give them that access? Here's the truth. Friendship and envy cannot live in the same heart. A real friend celebrates your wins as if they were their own. A frenemy treats your wins like a threat to their identity. Seneca once wrote, "He who envies another admits his own inferiority." When someone undermines you, it's not proof of your weakness, it's proof of theirs. Their envy reveals the cracks in their own self-worth. So don't take their sabotage personally. See it clearly. Protect your goals, and refuse to let their insecurity define your future. Competitive undermining is a silent killer of confidence. But when you recognize it, when you stop feeding it with your vulnerability, when you pursue your path regardless of their whispers, you break free. And in doing so, you discover the truth. Their opinion was never the obstacle. Your fear of their opinion was. That's sign number 2. Competitive undermining, the disguised friend who treats your success as their loss. Recognize them, stop sharing your dreams with them, and pursue your path with courage. Because your growth is not a crime, it is your calling. Sign 3. Conditional support. The third sign of a frenemy is one that looks like loyalty on the surface, but when you look closer, you see the truth. Their support is conditional. What does that mean? It means their friendship is transactional, always tied to what they get out of it. They're with you when things are easy, when the spotlight is shining, when there's something to gain from being connected to you. But when the road gets dark, when you really need someone, they're suddenly too busy, too tired, or simply gone. Here's how it often plays out. When you're celebrating a win, a new promotion, a personal achievement, even a small victory, they're the first to show up. Not always to cheer you on, but often to make sure they're seen by others standing next to you. Their support in these moments isn't about you, it's about visibility. But when life hits hard, when you lose a job, face a health scare, go through heartbreak, suddenly their calendar is full. Their phone is silent. Their support disappears because there's no audience, no benefit for them in standing by your side. And when they do help, it often comes with strings attached. Maybe they lent you money once or gave you advice when you were stuck. That's not generosity, it's an investment. Because months later, when you say no to something they want, they'll remind you, after everything I've done for you, you can't even do this one thing. This is not kindness, this is control. By weaponizing their past favors, they try to keep you indebted. They want you to feel guilty, to feel like you owe them constant loyalty, so they can pull the strings whenever it suits them. The Stoics had a sharp warning about this kind of relationship. Epictetus said, "When you give, do not expect repayment. Otherwise, you have traded, not given." True friendship works the same way. Real friends don't keep score. They don't turn their kindness into leverage. But frenemies, they treat support like currency, something to loan out so they can demand it back later with interest. The real danger of conditional support is not just their inconsistency, it's how it keeps you emotionally dependent. Because on the surface, they're sometimes supportive. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. And that unpredictability keeps you hooked. It's like a slot machine. You never know when they'll reward you, so you keep pulling the lever, hoping next time they'll be there for real. This is how frenemies trap you in a cycle of self-doubt. You start wondering, maybe I just need to try harder. Maybe if I give more, they'll finally treat me the way I treat them. But the truth is, you're bargaining for affection, and real love, real friendship, should never need to be negotiated. So what's the Stoic solution? How do you handle conditional support without losing yourself in it? Step 1. Recognize inconsistency. Don't get hypnotized by the few moments they've shown up. Look at the pattern. Do they stand by you when there's nothing in it for them? Or do they only appear when the benefits outweigh the costs? The pattern tells the truth. Step 2. Stop bargaining for affection. You don't need to earn anyone's loyalty with favors, flattery, or endless forgiveness. If someone makes you feel like their support has to be purchased, walk away. Affection that must be bought isn't affection. It's manipulation. Step 3. Set clear boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls. They're gates. They keep out the takers while leaving space for the givers. Make it clear what you will and won't accept. If someone uses guilt as a weapon, don't let it land. If they use past favors as leverage, remind yourself, gratitude is not the same as servitude. Step 4. Cultivate self-reliance. This is where Stoicism shines. The more you strengthen your inner resilience, the less power manipulators have over you. When you no longer rely on their approval, their rewards, or their conditional presence, you're free. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Build that inner fortress and no frenemy can hold you hostage. Step 5. Attract genuine relationships. When you free yourself from those who demand loyalty as a trade, you create space for those who give freely. Real friends will walk with you in the light and the dark, without needing applause, repayment, or control. They don't want you indebted. They want you free. Let me share a story that illustrates this. A man once told me about his longtime friend. Whenever the man succeeded, landed a new contract, bought a new car, this friend was right there, smiling, congratulating, even taking pictures together. But when the man's father passed away and he was drowning in grief, this friend vanished. Weeks later, when they finally spoke, the friend said, "I didn't know what to say, so I just stayed away." But shortly after, when the man hesitated to invest in the friend's business idea, the guilt trip began. "After all the times I've supported you, you can't even help me this once." That's not friendship. That's conditional loyalty. That's using someone's pain and past debts as leverage. The man's breakthrough came when he realized this truth. A friend who disappears when I'm broken was never a friend at all. Ask yourself this today. Who in your life only shows up when the sun is shining, but disappears when the storm hits? Who uses your gratitude as chains to bind you instead of letting it flow freely? And more importantly, why are you still making excuses for them? The Stoics would tell you, protect your circle as fiercely as you protect your mind. Because the people you allow close to you will shape your energy, your decisions, your growth. Frenemies with conditional support will keep you small, indebted, and uncertain. But true friends will lift you, even when there's nothing in it for them. So don't settle for half-hearted loyalty. Don't bargain for affection. Don't let guilt tie you to people who only see you as a resource. Instead, set your boundaries, build your resilience, and choose companions who value you for who you are, not for what they can get from you. Because in the end, freedom isn't just about living without chains. It's about living without strings. That's sign number 3. Conditional support. The kind of loyalty that comes with strings attached. Once you see it clearly, You'll never mistake it for real friendship again. Sign 4. Celebration. Sabotage. The fourth sign of a frenemy is one that can be subtle, yet deeply destructive. It's what I call celebration sabotage, or simply joy theft. Have you ever achieved something you were proud of? A new job, finishing a project, buying your first home, maybe even something small like committing to a new habit. And instead of celebrating with you, someone close to you found a way to minimize it. Instead of saying, "Congratulations, I'm proud of you," they respond with, "Well, let's see how long that lasts." Or, "That's good. But you know, so-and-so has already done it better." Or even, "Don't get too comfortable. Things can fall apart quickly." In those moments, it's not just their words that sting. It's the way they rob you of the joy you've earned. Why do they do this? Frenemies who sabotage celebrations often operate from envy and insecurity. Your win reminds them of their own lack, their own missed opportunities, their own fears. Instead of letting your victory inspire them, they twist it into something bitter. And instead of lifting you up, they try to anchor you down. Psychologists call this joy theft. It's when someone deliberately or unconsciously undermines your pride in an achievement, making you feel smaller for daring to celebrate. Over time, this chips away at your self-worth. You begin to hesitate before sharing good news, as if you need to protect your happiness from the people who should be cheering you on. The Stoic perspective. The Stoics warned us about this kind of trap. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Notice that. Your happiness depends on your own thoughts, not the approval of others. If you hand someone else the keys to your joy, you've already lost, because then your victories are not really yours. They are subject to their judgment, their criticism, their comparison. Epictetus also said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same is true for your victories. The achievement itself is neutral. The meaning, the joy, the celebration, that's something you create and protect. How it shows up in real life. Maybe you got a promotion at work. A real friend would say, "That's amazing, you earned it." A frenemy says, "Promotions are overrated, you'll just have more stress now." Maybe you've been working hard on your health and finally lost some weight. A real friend says, "I can see the discipline, it's inspiring." A frenemy says, "Careful, most people just gain it all back." Maybe you share a creative milestone, writing a book, starting a channel, launching a small business. A real friend says, "Wow, I admire your courage." A frenemy says, "The market is too crowded, don't get your hopes up." Do you see the pattern? Frenemies don't directly say, "I hope you fail." Instead, they cloak their sabotage in warnings, critiques, and comparisons. The words might sound reasonable on the surface, but the intent is not to protect you. It's to puncture your joy. Why it's dangerous? The danger is that repeated joy theft rewires how you see yourself. Every time your achievements are minimized, you start doubting whether they mattered at all. You begin internalizing the message, "Maybe I'm not that special. Maybe I shouldn't celebrate. Maybe I should keep my wins small so no one feels threatened." And once you shrink your own light, you're no longer growing. You're living down to their comfort level instead of up to your own potential. That's the trap. They steal not just your joy, but your momentum. The Stoic solution. So how do we protect ourselves? How do we prevent frenemies from stealing the victories we worked so hard for? 1. Don't let them define your joy. Your achievement is yours alone. Whether it's big or small, whether the world claps or not, if it mattered to you, then it matters. Don't let someone else's bitterness become the lens through which you see your success. 2. Share milestones only with those who honor them. Not everyone deserves front-row access to your victories. Be selective. If someone consistently downplays your joy, stop handing them the opportunity to do it. Save your celebrations for people who can genuinely celebrate with you. 3. Protect your victories from minimization. When someone tries to shrink your success, you don't have to argue. You don't have to defend. Simply smile and hold on to your inner pride. The Stoics would remind us, the opinion of others is outside your control. What is in your control is the gratitude and pride you cultivate within. 4. Turn the mirror inward. This one is hard, but essential. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever done the same to someone else? Have you ever compared, critiqued, or downplayed another person's joy because you were wrestling with envy of your own? If so, don't judge yourself harshly. Learn from it. Because the Stoic path is not just about avoiding toxic influences around us. It's about making sure we're not becoming toxic influences ourselves. A short story: I once knew a woman who had worked tirelessly for years to finish her college degree while raising 2 children. When she finally graduated, she was overjoyed. But when she shared the news with a close friend, the response wasn't congratulations, it was, "Well, anyone can get a degree these days. It doesn't mean that much." Her excitement deflated instantly. She told me later, "For a moment, I felt like all those late nights, all those sacrifices were meaningless." But then she caught herself. She realized her joy wasn't about her friend's approval. It was about her own journey, her own perseverance, her own victory. She decided, right then, to celebrate fully anyway, with people who truly understood the blood, sweat, and tears behind her success. That's the key. Don't let someone else's bitterness become your story. Questions to reflect on. Who in your life cheers the loudest when you succeed? Who makes you second-guess whether your win was really a win? And when was the last time you celebrated your own progress, without waiting for anyone else's permission? These are questions worth sitting with. Final thought. Frenemies steal joy because they can't create their own. But that doesn't mean you have to hand them yours. The Stoics would remind you, victory is not just about the outcome. It's about the courage, discipline, and virtue that carried you there. So, celebrate boldly, protect your joy, share it with those who honor it, and remember, every time you refuse to let someone minimize your success, you're not just defending a moment, you're defending the life you're building. Because in the end, joy is not something you ask permission to feel. It's something you claim, protect, and live out loud. Sign 5. Information. Weaponization. The fifth and perhaps most insidious sign of a frenemy is information weaponization. When someone gathers pieces of your life, your struggles, your secrets, not to support you, but to use them against you. Think about it. When you open up to a friend, you're offering trust. You're handing them a part of yourself, your vulnerabilities, your doubts, your mistakes, expecting they'll treat it with care. True friendship is built on that sacred exchange. But a frenemy, they see your openness as ammunition. How it shows up. Have you ever confided in someone during a low point? Maybe about financial struggles, a failed relationship, a mistake you regret, and later heard those same words thrown back at you during an argument? Or perhaps they didn't attack you directly. Instead, they casually brought up your private matters in front of others, cloaking it as a joke, but cutting you deep in the process. This is how frenemies operate. They listen, not with compassion, but with calculation. Every secret you share becomes a tool they can sharpen for later use. Why it hurts so deeply? Betrayal of this kind doesn't just sting. It shakes the very foundation of trust. Because trust is not about perfection. It's about safety. A true friend may not always have the right answers, but you know they'll guard your dignity as if it were their own. When someone weaponizes your information, they're not just breaking trust. They're stealing your dignity. They're showing you that your vulnerability, instead of being honored, has been turned into a weakness to exploit. The Stoic perspective. So how do we face this without becoming bitter or paranoid? The Stoics give us a clear path. Epictetus taught, "If you wish to be invincible, do not enter into combat where you cannot control the outcome." In other words, protect what you reveal. Not everyone has earned access to your inner world. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." If you spend your days replaying betrayals, drowning in resentment, you give the betrayer a second victory, control over your thoughts. But if you use the experience to sharpen your discernment, to guard your circle more wisely, then you've already reclaimed your power. A modern example: I knew someone once who trusted a colleague with personal struggles. They had opened up during what felt like a genuine moment of connection. Months later, when tension rose at work, those private confessions were used against them, subtly slipped into conversations, leveraged to question their competence. The betrayal was devastating. But here's the turning point. Instead of letting that moment define them, they took it as a hard-earned lesson. They didn't close themselves off to all people, but they became more intentional about who they allowed into their inner circle. And that shift, choosing wisely instead of sharing carelessly, transformed their life. The psychology of why frenemies do this. Why would someone do such a thing? Often it comes from insecurity and a hunger for control. Frenemies lack the courage to stand on their own merits, so they seek leverage over others. Your vulnerability becomes their shortcut to power. It's like keeping a hidden card up their sleeve, something they can pull out to silence you, to embarrass you, or to remind you of your place. And the more you depend on their approval, the more effective their weapon becomes. The Stoic solution. So how do we respond in a way that's both wise and freeing? 1. Be selective with your trust. Not everyone who smiles at you deserves access to your heart. Friendship should be proven, not assumed. Watch how someone handles small bits of information before entrusting them with your deepest struggles. If they gossip about others, they will one day gossip about you. 2. Stop bargaining for connection through oversharing. Sometimes we share too much too soon because we crave closeness. But closeness built on desperation is fragile. The Stoics would remind us, true connection doesn't come from pouring everything out. It comes from shared values, consistent actions, and time-tested loyalty. 3. Guard your peace, not your secrets. The point isn't to live with walls so high no one gets in. It's to ensure the people who do enter have proven themselves worthy. Choose quality over quantity in your relationships. A single loyal friend is worth more than 100 smiling traitors. 4. Respond with dignity. When someone does weaponize your information, resist the urge to retaliate in kind. Don't sink to their level. As Seneca said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. By refusing to play their game, you maintain your integrity, and that integrity is a shield no one can take away. Reflective questions. Who currently holds pieces of your story? And have they proven themselves trustworthy? Do you share as a way to connect? Or do you share because you've discerned that the person truly values your vulnerability? And most importantly, how can you protect your dignity without closing your heart completely? These are questions worth sitting with, because the answers will shape the quality of your relationships. a personal practice. One Stoic practice I recommend is journaling, writing down the things you feel tempted to share with others, but keeping them for yourself first. Marcus Aurelius' meditations were essentially a private journal. He wrote his deepest doubts, his private struggles, but he wrote them for his own growth, not for public approval. This way, you give yourself the space to process, without immediately handing your rawest wounds to someone who may not handle them with care. Over time, you'll notice that you don't need to overshare to feel seen. You already see yourself, and that kind of inner stability makes you far less vulnerable to manipulation. Final thought. Information weaponization is one of the most painful forms of betrayal because it takes something sacred, trust, and twists it into a weapon. But remember this, the betrayal is theirs, not yours. Their actions reveal their character, not your worth. The Stoic path doesn't call us to paranoia or bitterness. It calls us to wisdom, to discernment, to the strength of setting boundaries without losing compassion. So guard your heart wisely. Share your truth with those who have earned it. And if someone turns your vulnerability into ammunition, don't let it harden you. Let it refine you. Because in the end, the measure of your life isn't how many people you confided in. It's how many truly stood by you when it mattered most. And when you live by that standard, you'll never fear betrayal again. We've journeyed through the subtle signs of frenemies, the ones who wear the mask of friendship but quietly chip away at your peace. And now, as we bring this to a close, it's time to bring everything into focus. Because here's the truth. Frenemies manipulate, undermine, and sabotage, not because you're weak, but because your strength threatens them. They can't stand the light you carry, so they try to dim it. They can't celebrate your wins, so they try to minimize them. They can't stand beside you with integrity, so they choose to stand behind you with deception. And yet, they always pose as friends, smiling, congratulating, pretending. That's what makes them dangerous. Recognize the pattern early. The first step in protecting yourself is recognition. Frenemies rarely reveal themselves in a single dramatic moment. Instead, they work in patterns, the subtle digs, the backhanded compliments, the way they're present when life is smooth, but mysteriously absent when storms arrive. The Stoics remind us that life is about perception, how we see reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone shows you who they are, why not believe them the first time?" Too often, we excuse bad behavior because we want the friendship to be real. We rationalize, saying, maybe they didn't mean it that way. But wisdom means seeing clearly. If their actions form a pattern of harm, you must accept the truth of who they are, not the illusion they project. Protecting your peace. Once you see the pattern, the next step is boundaries. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. They tell the world, here is where my dignity begins. Here is what I will no longer tolerate. Some people won't like it when you draw those lines. They'll call you cold, selfish, or dramatic. But boundaries are not for them, they're for you. They are the fence that guards your mental garden, keeping out those who trample on your peace. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." If someone constantly drags you down, undermines your confidence, or uses your vulnerability against you, then your peace is worth more than their approval. Withdrawing without guilt. This brings us to the hardest part, walking away. Too often, we stay in toxic relationships out of guilt. We fear being judged. We fear being alone. We tell ourselves, maybe it's not that bad. But the Stoics teach us to value truth over comfort. If a connection is poisoning your spirit, you don't owe it another chance. You don't owe it endless explanations. You owe yourself freedom. Walking away is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of self-respect. It says, I will no longer betray myself by staying where I am, not celebrated. True friendship versus false friendship. And here's the key. Cutting ties with frenemies isn't just about removing negativity. It's about making space for true friendship. Because true friends, they don't compete with you. They cheer for you. They don't exploit your weaknesses. They help you heal. They don't vanish in your storms. They hold an umbrella beside you, even if they get soaked. True friends remain consistent, not perfect, but genuine. They celebrate your victories without comparison. They walk with you in loss, without turning your pain into gossip. They encourage your growth, not because it benefits them, but because they love seeing you become who you were meant to be. Epictetus put it simply. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. A Stoic reframe. Freedom through discernment. When you let go of frenemies, you don't lose anything of real value. What you lose is illusion, the illusion of support, the illusion of loyalty, the illusion of love. And when illusion falls away, truth remains. You gain freedom. Freedom from second-guessing their words. Freedom from explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Freedom from the weight of false connection. And with that freedom comes clarity. You now have the space to cultivate relationships that are real, to pour your energy into people who reflect kindness, consistency, and courage, to walk lighter because you no longer drag the chains of toxic ties behind you. A personal reflection I once heard someone say, pay attention to who claps when you win and who stays when you lose. It stuck with me because life always reveals true colors. Frenemies can only fake for so long. Time is the great revealer. So ask yourself, who in your life genuinely celebrates you? Who listens without judgment? Who makes you feel lighter, stronger, more yourself when you're with them? Those are the ones worth keeping close. Everyone else? Let them go. Not with hatred, not with bitterness, but with calm conviction. Final message. So here's the final message I want to leave you with. Cutting ties with frenemies is not cruelty. It's self-respect. It's not rejection. It's protection. It's not loss. It's liberation. True friendship is rare and precious. Guard it. Nurture it. And never confuse counterfeit loyalty with the real thing. In a world full of people who smile but don't mean it, your best defense is clarity, courage, and character. Recognize the signs early. Protect your peace with strong boundaries. And never apologize for walking away from those who harm your spirit. Because when you stand firm in this truth, you'll discover something powerful. The more you let go of false friends, the more room you make for true ones. And that is a freedom worth fighting for. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from a so-called friend who turned out to be a frenemy? What was the moment that finally opened your eyes? Share your story in the comments, because you never know who might need to hear it. If today's message gave you strength, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people like you discover it. And if you're ready to keep walking this stoic path of clarity, courage, and freedom, then hit subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, you'll never miss the tools and wisdom you need to rise above betrayal, protect your peace, and live with unshakable dignity. Remember, life is too short to carry false friends. Choose virtue, choose freedom, and let's keep walking this journey together.